3 years ago, I posted a hooded eye masterclass that went viral. Millions of views later, a lot has changed, including my own face. Gravity is real, time moves on, and my lids are heavier, saggier, and more textured than they were back then. I went back and watched that video and I thought to myself, how can I make this better? I honestly put all of my best tips and tricks and techniques into that video. But as I watched, I also thought to myself, my opinions had changed about certain products, about certain techniques. So who is this Hooded Eye Masterclass 2.0 for? Well, it's for those of you that maybe saw that original video and have successfully used those tips and tricks for the past several years, but are noticing that you still need more help. So what I'm going to do today is take you step by step through my process to take my eyes from looking like this to this. Eyebrows are the frame of the face, and when you have hooded eyes, they are even more important. Some people like to do their eyebrows first before they do any sort of base makeup. I have tried doing that so many times and I just can't. No matter how careful I try to be, I always end up taking off a part of my brow when applying my foundation. Usually I do like to do my eye makeup before my base makeup and just get the eyes out of the way. I find that it speeds up the whole makeup application process, but today I have obviously applied foundation and blush and lip color, but my eyelids are completely bare. On a typical day, when I don't have all of this already applied, I do start by brushing up my brow hairs and at the very least creating the shape. As I just said, I cannot do the full brow before foundation, but just creating the shape before going in with my eyeshadow, I find makes a huge difference. Something you never want to do, hooded eyes or not, is have the ends of your brow going down. So we're going to get rid of that. And we are going to start underneath the arch of the brow and take it out towards my temple or right above the ear. So I'm going to fill in that arch first, and then I draw a soft line right underneath. On a normal day when I have not done my foundation yet, this is all I will do. I'll basically make the outline of the brow on both sides. Please keep in mind that brows are sisters, not twins. You will be miserable if you are trying to make both of your brows completely even. Get them as close to even as you can. Now, because I do have my foundation on already, I am going to complete my brows. This pencil is the Brow Cheat from Charlotte Tilbury, but you can get a very affordable brow pencil at the drugstore. NYX, Milani, Morphe, they all make very affordable, excellent quality brow pencils. Now, some people will say this next step is very 2016, but I disagree. I cannot do my makeup without doing this step, which is taking a light concealer and picking that up on a synthetic brush and carving out underneath my brow. Focusing once again under the arch and then out towards my upper ear or temple area. Then I like to take my finger and gently buff it out. In the Hooded Eye Masterclass from 3 years ago, one of the first things I stated was the importance of an eyeshadow base, priming the eye before shadow. Because not only is your eyeshadow going to go on smoother, it's going to last longer and you're going to have less of a chance of having the eyeshadow migrate to other areas that you don't want. If you're placing a darker shadow at the base of the lash, or perhaps you're someone who is still using a gel liner or even a liquid liner, and you find that the pigment transfers from right here to the skin on your lid, applying an eyeshadow primer is really going to help. And at the time, I did recommend that you use an actual eyeshadow primer, not a concealer on the lid. And I said that because over my years of experience doing my own face and as a working makeup artist, I truly felt that using a designated eyeshadow primer and not just a concealer to prep the lid made a very big difference. And I still believe that it does if your lids are extremely oily. At 53 years old, my skin overall still gets quite oily, but my lids are not quite as oily as they used to be. And now I feel like you actually can use concealer as an eyeshadow base if you're using the right formula. You don't want anything too heavy, because if you watch what I'm doing, it can go wrong very easily. And you can have a thick, heavy layer of concealer on your lid that's doing what it's supposed to do, which is smoothing out any discoloration and helping the shadow to go on easier and last longer. But if it's the wrong formula, it can also make your eyelids look more dry. It can make your eyelids look more aged, and none of us want that. So for my now moderately oily lids, I do like to use concealer. I just pop a little bit on the center of the lid. You can see with the hooded eyes, it automatically transfers from the bottom lid to the top. So I just do one, bam. This is how you know if you have hooded lids or not. If you apply something to the center of the lid, and when you look straight ahead, you can't even see it, that's a hooded eye. So now I'm just buffing it out with a brush, and you want to make sure you get into the inner corner, down to the lower lash line, and meeting up with where you carved out the brow. I also like to apply a little bit to the outer corners, right under here, because that is where I tend to get a lot of smudging. And if your eyes also turn down on the ends and you have that fold there, you too might get a lot of smudging in this area. So it's really important to put some base there as well. And then set everything with powder. You can either use a big fluffy brush like this or a puff. The powder I'm using today is from Charlotte Tilbury, but you can use any finely milled powder you'd like. You can use pressed, you can use loose. But once again, you don't want to use too much. Always tap off the excess. So now I'm just patting, not brushing. I am patting on the powder. Press, press, press. The biggest mistake I see people who have hooded eyes making is that they go right in with too dark of a color or too light of a color. You want to use a mid-toned eyeshadow. You also want to make sure you're using a brush that is not too big. This might not look big, but it is bigger than what we need for a hooded eye. You want to be using a brush like this, slightly smaller. Hooded eyes require smaller brushes. That doesn't mean we're not going to use a brush like this. We are. But to start, we want something smaller. Morphe has come out with some amazing 6-pan eyeshadow palettes that contain all matte shades. For today's demo, I'm using Tailored Nudes. I'm going into this mid-toned brown. It's not as light as the one up here, but it's also not as dark as the one down here. And with my eyes open, I'm going to look directly into my mirror. And this is why I do my eyes first normally, because you can get some fallout. But I'm just taking this right through where my crease would be if I had one. And some of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, that is so high, that is so dark. But what we're doing now is just mapping out the shape. And because this eye is more hooded, I have to be a little bit more careful. And I always start on the outer corners because that's where the most pigment is going to be laid down. But you still want it to be dark enough so that you can see it. Now I'm putting a little bit more right in the center and towards my nose. Another reason why I tend to do my eyes first is because I like to do this little trick that I call make a mess and worry about it later. What I mean by that is exactly what it sounds like. I do my eyeshadow very messy. I just become very uninhibited with it. So if it comes down here, not a big deal. But this is what you want to look like. You want to be able to see that eyeshadow with your eyes open, but it does look a little harsh. So this is where the next brush and the next shadow come in. We are going to take that fluffier brush and pick up a slightly lighter tone. Again, tapping off my excess, starting at the outer corner, and then buffing out. Yes, I'm going almost all the way up to the arch of my brow. And then what I like to do is raise my brows and get right into the fold, right under the hood. You can see how that sort of created a gradient where I've kept most of the darkness on the outer corner that gives the lift, that will give the lift once I do the cleanup. but it also gives a gradient for the entire eyeshadow look. You want a brush that is super, super soft. This one is from BK Beauty. I will have all of the brushes listed and linked in the description box. So something else I like to do is make little circles when I blend, little circular motions, especially when I get to the outer corners. Just little circles. Now, for an everyday look, sometimes I'll use my finger, sometimes I'll use a brush. I'm gonna use a brush just for demonstration purposes. I'm gonna go into the light shade, and then I wanna put this right onto the lid, on the inner corner, by the nose, and then just right onto that lid. Now I realize those of us who are older may have a lot of texture going on the lid, which is why you want to make sure that the eyeshadow is a smoothing formula. How do you know if an eyeshadow is a smoothing formula? How does it feel when you pick it up with the brush? Does it feel like it's sort of creamy, or does it feel dry and chalky? How does it feel on your lid? Does it feel smooth? Is it catching on that texture? And so I am taking this all the way up to where my crease would be if I had one, always making sure that you can still see the darkness with my eye open. And if you can't, you can go back in with your brush and deepen it just a hair. Now, honestly, you could stop here. You could curl your lashes, apply some mascara, but for this video, like I said at the beginning, I wanted to show you my sort of go-to method. So lately what I've been doing is I've been taking a very, very small crease brush, smaller than the two I've already shown. This one is a Refer number 14, and I'm going back into that shade that we used originally for the crease, that mid-tone brown, packing some onto my brush. And then this is where that messiness comes in. I'm just patting it on the outer corners, under the fold, and then just bringing it down. I know what you're thinking. That's crazy. That looks terrible. You've got eyeshadow coming all the way down here. Just watch. So I'm just tapping, tapping, tapping. And then as there's less and less product on the brush, I am moving it in. Same thing on the other side. Patting under the fold, under the hood, bringing it down, and then making a gradient inward. I personally like to add a little bit of eyeliner right at the base of the lashes to help make my lashes look fuller. So using a very tiny angled brush, I'm picking up the rich chocolate brown from the palette. A tip I used to tell all my clients is to take a magnified mirror in your hand, put your chin up and look down into the mirror and press right at the base. By putting your chin up and looking down into a mirror, if you have poor eyesight like me, a magnifying mirror, that way you can see the entirety of your lid. You can see actually better where you need to do more blending. This is such a good angle that not many people pay attention to, because now I can see that I do need some evening out. I like to take my eyeliner from the inner corner all the way to the outer corner, but that really depends on your eye shape. If you have a lot of heaviness on the inner corner, you may not want to do that. You may just want to keep your lash line liner just to the outer portion of the lid. And then once again, make that mess. Bring it down. This is going to be the easiest wing liner you've ever done. And I do have a specific video dedicated to this technique, but I wanted this to be a video giving you all my best tips and tricks. What a mess, right? So I'm taking a pointed Q-tip, following along my lower lash line, and then swiping up and out. You don't want to go at too high of an angle. You also don't want it to be straight out, because if you have eyes like mine that turn down even more when you smile and you've got a lot of maybe crow's feet in this area, you don't want that eyeshadow down here or eyeliner. You don't want anything in this area. You want this area light and bright. So that is why I'm going just ever so slightly at that angle. So this is what we're looking like. Now, if you want to, and your eyes can handle it, you can make the liner at the base of your lashes a little softer and a little bit thicker. And a brush I like to use for that is this little domed one from Morphe. This was in the Makeup by Ariel set, and I believe I used this brush in my original Masterclass video as well. It is so good. I don't know if it's made anymore, but I will do my best to link something similar. So I'm gonna go back in with that same shade I used for eyeliner. Smoke out the lash line, making it a little bit thicker and more smoky. And then I'm taking that same brush that we used to carve out the brow, and I'm going back in with my concealer palette. Some people do like to use a flat brush for this step because that also will give you a very crisp line underneath the eye. And again, you want to make sure that you are getting right under that fold. Light and bright, light and bright. So I've gone ahead and completed both eyes, but the next thing I like to do is take an even fluffier brush with nothing on it. No powder, no shadow, and just make little circles across the entirety of the eyeshadow look, minus the eyeliner. We want to keep that where it is. And then to reinforce just a little bit of lightness under the brow, I go back in with the flat brush and the ivory shadow from the palette. And just right under the arch of the brow, I bring back a little bit of lightness. This also helps to blend out that first shade we applied. And then I also like to put a little bit of this on the outer corner where I cleaned up to set. You don't want to take this light shadow any farther down. Otherwise, that is going to make the hood look even puffier. Keep in mind, light colors bring things forward. Dark makes them recede. Something else you always want to be sure to do when you have hooded eyes is curl your eyelashes. And not all lash curlers are the same. You may have discovered that already. Some are very rounded, some are more flat. So if you are using an eyelash curler that doesn't fit comfortably on your lids, it's the wrong shape for you. My favorites are this one from Rephr and this one from Kevyn Aucoin. As you can see, they are very similar in shape and they're a little bit flatter. There's still a curve there, but it's not a rainbow shape that some eyelash curlers are, where there's a very distinct rounded curve. I have very light, sparse blonde lashes, so it's hard to see on camera. But I do one pump, move up a little bit, and then a couple pumps to really get that curl. And then this step is optional, but I find it makes a huge difference on my eyes, is I do like to tight line. I have to be careful though which eyeliners I use to tight line because some of them irritate my eyes, some of them do not last in the upper or lower water lines. This is the new Benefit Bad Gal Hyperliner that I've been using recently. It's really great. It's long wearing. I use either black or brown. As you can see, I'm holding my lashes up so I can get right at the base. And you can definitely see the difference tight lining makes. Now, before I go in with mascara, I want to mention a couple of other things. One, you can apply shadow to your lower lash line. You just want to make sure that it's really, really soft. And I like to use a pencil brush for that step. And sometimes I just use what's ever left over on my brush from the time before. I don't even add any extra shadow. I just sort of run the brush underneath. Now you might be thinking, Risa, you don't clean your brushes after every application? It depends on the brush. Some I do, some I don't. I do wash my brushes at least once every 2 weeks, my entire set. But the eye brushes I do like to keep sometimes a little bit dirty because it helps with the blend. I decided I do want to add a little bit more color, so I'm just going in with that lighter brown and just softly smudging along the bottom lash line. Something else you can do at this point. You can add a shimmer. Yes, hooded and or mature eyes can wear shimmer shadows. You just want to make sure that it's the right type of shimmer. Nothing chunky, nothing glittery. I like shimmers that I can just press a little bit on my lid and it really changes the game. It really takes the look from day to night. It looks so beautiful when it catches the light when I look down, because with the hooded eyes, you can't really see it until you look down. But in our everyday lives, we are constantly changing our expressions, changing our movements, so people will see that little bit of sparkle. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of this beautiful sparkle shimmer shade from this Moira Chasing Eternity palette. My regular viewers know that this is one of my favorites. These shimmers are just so buttery and beautiful. And I do this before I apply my mascara so that none of the sparkle gets on the mascara. As you can see, it just added a little bit of something. This is very similar to like Space Cowboy from Urban Decay. Now I'm applying my mascara. This is my current favorite. It is the MAC Stack Elevated. Throughout my decade here on YouTube and making these types of hooded eye videos, I have always expressed the importance of a very full lash line when you have hooded eyes, meaning full, long, beautiful lashes that just draw people's attention, not to your eye makeup, but to your eyes. And in most of my hooded eye videos, I mention that if you don't already have really great lashes, which a lot of us don't, even if we had great lashes in our 20s and 30s, by the time 40, 50, 60, 70 rolls around, they are much finer, they're much more sparse. So I know a lot of you really cringe or recoil at the thought of false lashes, but false lashes of even 3 years ago are not the false lashes of today. I know a lot of you have told me in comments over the years that you struggle with a shaky hand or knowing when the glue is dry enough to place the lash on. So over the years, I have spoken about half lashes. I've spoken about lash clusters, individual lashes. And now you can get lashes that are self-adhesive. You don't even have to bother with the glue. Now it's kind of risky for me to try these for the first time today, but I picked up these velour self-stick lash clusters. These were created in collaboration with the makeup artist Carolina Gonzalez. She, I believe, is a global makeup artist for Armani Beauty, and she does makeup on Victoria's Secret supermodels. She does makeup for Sabrina Carpenter. She's very, very talented. So knowing that she had input at all in the development of these lashes, that sold me. And these are meant to go under the lash. Take a tweezers and pull off 1B. They're labeled ABC. And hopefully I'll stay in frame. I have to get really close to the magnifying mirror. Oh yeah, that was super easy. Oh my goodness, that was so easy. Just look at the little lift that gave, just that one cluster. So I'm going to take an A. I'm going to try to just use 2 today. Look at that. Wow. So natural. I'm not joking when I say these are the easiest self-adhesive lashes I think I've ever tried. And then as a finishing touch, I do like to go over the lash line with a little bit more brown to intensify. And then I also like to take a little bit right at the base of the lashes at the outer corner, just to bring, again, more lift to the area. So I follow the lower lash line and right up under those lashes. Now this step is also optional. You can take an ivory pencil and apply that to your waterline. This is the best one on the market. It's from Swede. All right, that is it for this Hooded Eye Masterclass 2.0. Feel free to ask any questions you may have in the comments. I do try to answer as many as I can. If you did enjoy this video and found it helpful, please give it a like, a share, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I have been a makeup artist since 1996. I have trained with some of the best in the business like Laura Mercier and Bobbi Brown, and my channel is full of tips and tricks and tutorials and product reviews. So if you are not already subscribed to my channel, I hope that you'll consider doing so. I also post content on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. My username is the same on every platform. It's Risa Does Makeup. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video.